Stefan Edberg played tennis in one of the most competitive eras in the men's game. A single tennis stroke does not necessarily equate to becoming a major champion, but in Stefan Edberg's case, his proficiency as a superb serve and volley player, particularly on the backhand side, led him to 6 major singles championships and an additional 3 titles in men's doubles. Edberg's volleying acumen was pure beauty, but with the abundance of talent on the men's pro tour during his era from 1983 to 1996, Stefan Edberg's game stood out for how he was able to win 2 Australian Opens, 2 Wimbledon titles, and 2 US Open titles, with a game not built on power or pace but with precision and what many consider perfect serve and volley tennis. Stefan Edberg said following his retirement that nobody does it these days, talking about serve and volley tennis, so there is hardly any variation in the style of play. I would love to see players serve and volley more. It's a very sad aspect of the game that the art of serve and volleying has vanished. When his technique is broken down into its individual components, his efficiency from ball toss to attacking the net was nearly perfect. His big kick serve or wicket slice serve were fast and viciously spun, which compensated for not being thunderous like his counterparts. His one-handed backhand, a big departure from his idol and fellow Swede Bjorn Borg, who slapped his two-handed backhand hockey style, was a huge weapon that won him many critical points. In fact, his backhand was stronger and better than his forehand. Edberg had quick feet and reflexes and total control of his body. It was rare that he would be caught hitting a shot in no man's land, out of position or unprepared. But Stefan Edberg had the misfortune, or some can say opportunity, as many suggested, in succeeding his countryman Bjorn Borg. The two were entirely different players in all styles, though they did share great athleticism, court demeanor, and approach to competition. Stefan Edberg, like Bjorn Borg, was immensely focused and not prone to displaying his emotions. His temperament was smooth, just like his game. Stefan Edberg said, "I've always been used to keeping it all inside, but it was all tactics. Because, as when you play poker, you have to show as little as possible to your opponent. You don't have to bring your weaknesses to exploit his." Like his childhood idol Bjorn Borg, Stefan Edberg began playing tennis at the young age of 7. In 1973, he first hit the tennis courts. 10 years later, in 1983, he became the first and at that time only player to win a junior singles Grand Slam. At the Australian Open and US Open, he defeated Australian Simon Yule for 2 legs of the 4 major titles he earned as a junior. As a professional, he won 41 singles and 18 doubles titles. He won 801 singles matches. In major tournament play, Stefan Edberg won 178 matches. Stefan Edberg joined the Pro Tour in 1983, and it took him less than 2 years to win his first ATP tournament. It came on 25th March 1984 in Milan in Italy over fellow Swede Mats Wilander 6-4, 6-2. He won Olympic honors before winning a major championship, defeating Mexico's Francisco Maciel 6-1, 7-6 at the 1984 Los Angeles Games. He also won bronze medals at the 1988 Games played in Seoul in South Korea in both singles and doubles. Until Stefan Edberg won in Memphis in late January 1985, he had not yet made a complete mark on the men's game. But that championship included a 6-4, 6-2 win over Brad Gilbert in the quarterfinals, a 6-1, 6-4 thrashing of Jimmy Connors in the semifinals, and a 6-1, 6-love blitz over Yannick Noah in the finals. That string of wins caught everyone's attention. Fast surfaces were tailor-made for Edberg's game. He won all of his major singles and doubles titles on fast surfaces. He never won the French Open, though he did advance to the 1989 final, falling to 17-year-old Michael Chang, who at that time became the youngest male major champion in history on the slow red clay at Roland Garros 6-1, 3-6, 4-6, 6-4, 6-2. Statistically at least, the Australian Open was Stefan Edberg's favoured venue. He played in 5 finals from 1985 to 1993. On the way to winning the 1985 and 1987 titles, and advancing to three additional finals, Stefan Edberg compiled a 56 wins to 10 defeats record in Melbourne. As the number 5 seed in 1985, Stefan Edberg played a dazzling 5-set match in defeating Ivan Lendl in the semi-finals 6-7, 7-5, 6-1, 4-6, 9-7. Fellow Swede Wilander was unable to counter-attack Edberg's masterful serve and volley game in the final, losing 6-4, 6-3, 6-3. Stefan Edberg's 1987 championship had an easier semi-final win over Aussie Wally Masur, who he defeated 6-2, 6-4, 7-6, but the championship match was an arduous back-and-forth tussle against Pat Cash that Edberg captured in 5 sets: 6-3, 6-4, 3-6, 5-7, 6-3. Stefan Edberg lost to Ivan Lendl in 1990 and to Jim Courier in both the 1992 and 1993 finals that saw the ecstatic Courier jump in the muddy Yarra River. Stefan Edberg's fiercest rival outside of the Courier defeats in Australia was German Boris Becker. Stefan Edberg defeated Boris Becker to win the 1988 and 1990 Wimbledon Gentlemen's Singles Championships. Both matches were massive serving and volleying efforts by both players, Stefan Edberg winning 4-6, 7-6, 6-4, 6-2 in 1988 and 6-2, 6-2, 3-6, 3-6, 6-4 in 1990. Boris Becker convincingly defeated Stefan Edberg at Wimbledon in 1989 6-love, 7-6, 6-4. The pair played 35 times, with Becker holding a 25-10 advantage. At the 1987 Wimbledon Championships, Stefan Edberg advanced to the semi-finals before being defeated by Ivan Lendl in 4 sets. But in his opening round match against Stefan Eriksson, Stefan Edberg defeated his fellow Swede 6-love, 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 becoming one of only 6 players in history at that time to earn a triple bagel victory. In 10 meetings versus Edberg, Courier won 6, but one of Edberg's 4 victories came on a sweltering 90+ degree Fahrenheit day at the 1991 US Open 6-2, 6-4, 6-love, and at that time the odds were not in his favor. Stefan Edberg seemed destined to follow the same unfortunate snake-bitten path as Bjorn Borg, who failed to win the US Open in 10 attempts. Going into the 1991 final against Courier, Stefan Edberg had been stymied in 8 previous trips to New York. But he was crisp throughout the tournament, winning 5 of his 7 matches that year in straight sets and dispensed Ivan Lendl 6-3, 6-3, 6-4 in the semi-finals. I remember walking off the court knowing there was no way I could have beaten him on that day, Courier told the media afterwards. He played a nearly flawless match. Edberg confirmed he was in the zone that afternoon at Flushing Meadows. Lifting the trophy after beating Courier was the best match of my life. The Swede successfully defended his US Open title in 1992 with a neat 3-6, 6-4, 7-6, 6-2 win over Pete Sampras, a player he lost to in 8 of 14 tournaments but never in a major event. He even defeated Pete Sampras in the semi-finals of the 1993 Australian Open. Throughout his career, Edberg held his own and then some against the world's best. You've already understood by the names he played against in major matches how competitive tennis was in Stefan Edberg's era. We have mentioned names like Ivan Lendl, Boris Becker, Pete Sampras, Jim Courier, Michael Chang, just to name a few. I was lucky to play in the era of great players, Edberg told ATPWorldTour.com. Stefan Edberg's singles proficiency spilled nicely into his doubles game, where he joined John McEnroe as the only players in history to be ranked number 1 in singles and doubles since the ATP computer rankings began, a feat he achieved in the 1986 and 1987 seasons. He was ranked number 1 in singles a total of 72 non-consecutive weeks during his career and number 1 in doubles 11 weeks. Stefan Edberg was ranked in world top 10 in year-end rankings 10 straight years from 1985 to 1994, finishing in the top 5 from 1985 to 1993. In major doubles competition, he and Swedish partner Anders Järryd won the Australian Open and US Opens in 1987, and in 1996 Edberg teamed with Czech Peter Korda to win a second Australian Open doubles title. Edberg represented Sweden in Davis Cup competition from 1984 to 1996, leading the team to championships in 1984, 1985, 1987 and 1994. Stefan Edberg, who was named the ATP Player of the Year in 1990 and 1991, was honored by the organization 5 times with its Sportsmanship Award, from 1988 to 1993 times, then again in 1992, and for the final time in 1995. That distinction led the ATP to rename the Sportsmanship Award to the Stefan Edberg Sportsmanship Award in 1996. In its 40 Greatest Player of the Tennis era, Tennis magazine ranked Edberg 14th overall and 8th on the men's side.